We continue our reading of God's Dream for You, The Chosen, a morning devotional by author Dwight K. Nelson. Today's reading, October 8, The Last Story. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me. Matthew 25, 35 and 36. When a man is on death row, you listen very closely and carefully to the last story he tells, don't you? Jesus' parable of the sheep and the goats is the final one recorded in the Gospels before his execution. Why would Matthew save this one to tell at the very end? Once I was studying the Bible with a woman who raised goats, and when we came to this parable, she took great offense. Why would God save the sheep but condemn the goats? Actually, when Jesus told this story, all his agrarian listeners knew that the sheep of Palestine were light in color, while the goats were dark. A shepherd's task in separating the sheep from the goats were voracious and ravaging eaters and were thus kept apart, was made simple because of the contrast in their hues. Jesus chooses the visual distinction to heighten the contrast between the two very different communities of people at the end of time. When he returns, he will separate the nations of earth like a shepherd separates the sheep and the goats. To the righteous, the sheep, he will offer his eternal kingdom, and to the wicked, the goats, he will render eternal judgment. But both groups in the parable are surprised at the king's unexpected verdict. In our text today, the king explains his decision, linking both fates to the way the saved and the lost responded or didn't respond to the physical needs of the poor, the needy, the disenfranchised, and alienated. Truly I tell you, whatever you did or did not do, for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did or did not do for me. Matthew 25:40. We all know the story. But when I read the punchline in The Desire of Ages, I was astounded. Quote, thus Christ on the Mount of Olives pictured to his disciples the scene of the great judgment day, and he represented its decision as turning upon one point. When the nations are gathered before him, there will be but two classes, and their eternal destiny will be determined by what they have done or have neglected to do for him in the person of the poor and the suffering. Page 637. The final judgment for all rendered on the basis of how we treated the poor. Could it be that Mother Teresa wasn't the only one given the divine mission to serve the poor? This concludes our reading today of God's Dream for You, The Chosen.